Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So obviously by the title, I'm going to be showing you 10 plants in my collection that I feel have the best texture or have the most appealing texture to me. I had an idea of maybe incorporating plants in between each plant that I don't own that I feel would have an amazing texture. But I don't know, I think I'm gonna keep it simple for now. If you guys want to see that video, let me know in the comments and maybe we'll do it. But I'm gonna try and keep it short and sweet today and just kind of oogle over the plants that I do have. So we're just gonna get started. I'm gonna go with the most obvious one. I'm gonna give you 5 seconds to guess which plant I'm about to show on the screen. If you got it right, I want to know in the comments too. So obviously I had to start it off strong with my sinningia leucotricha. In all the times that I have really fangirled, I guess, over this plant. Okay, the AC is like giving me whiplash. You need to calm down. It's not that hot. I feel like in the other videos where I fangirled over this plant, I said very specifically that even if you don't like this plant for the way it looks, you should at least get it for the way it feels. I don't know like how much I can emphasize that like these leaves induce serotonin. Now they look very sad, and actually I'm thinking about chopping this top off because we have a few growing in at the bottom, and I think I want to allow the plant to use that energy on these instead and like, you know, kind of sacrifice this top one that's been looking kind of sad for a while, because when it's the happiest it actually looks much more fuzzy and vibrant and like puffy. And I'll throw in a photo here of a really healthy, lush, plump sinningia leucotricha. They're just so incredible and magical. I can't explain it to you. It's like a dog's ear. It's what I would imagine, maybe like, not like a long-haired dog, but one that's like puffy and floofy. Like it almost feels like a teddy bear. So like a hybrid of like a teddy bear's ear plus a dog's ear. You know how like the dog's ears are like super soft? They feel like silk. I can't explain it. If you've never touched a dog's ear, you have to do it. It's like one of those textures that you just can't explain. It gives me cute aggression. So I get the same feeling with this one. Honestly, when I'm having days where I'm just like feeling kind of down, or like I'm just, you know, having a day in general, I could just go up to this plant and feel this leaf, and just, it's like it consoles me and it comforts me and it brings me back to life. So I highly recommend this plant. Again, I don't feel like it has the most like amazing foliage. I do think it's very cute. Obviously, look at this one. It looks so much better than mine. But like, just for the texture, just for the feeling, if you're one of those people who collect plants both for the way they look and the way they feel, this one's for you. People have also suggested a different kind of plant, which I think might be a succulent, and you can grow it outside. And I actually think my sister-in-law grows it outside because she just has this like patch in her front yard where it's just like fuzzies, like these fuzzy succulent looking plants. And people have suggested that to me also because they've said it's much easier to care for. There is a chance I may go out looking for one because I feel like I need more textural plants in my life. And I've actually been contemplating trying to collect more like interesting plants like this and just kind of putting them all together with like my different succulents, my different cacti. And I was thinking, this is just a thought, okay, this is not for sure. I was thinking of replacing this cabinet with one that's larger. IKEA has a new one, and I'll insert it here, that I've been eyeing. It's so beautiful. I just don't really like the legs. I feel like the legs, like the bottom part of this shelf, does not quite match the house. It doesn't quite match what I like in furniture. So that's the only reason, plus the cost, that I haven't gotten it yet. But I do think it would be perfect for this area because it would span across the entire wall. And then I can just do like shelves of plants like this, and I can collect more. And the reason that I've been not really collecting non-aeroids is because of I feel like I don't have a good space in my house to display them. But if I could have more plants like this, I 100% would. I do believe there's another variety of this that is in cultivation it's just not, it doesn't quite do it for me. I feel like the leaves might be darker opposed to when this one's really healthy. It's got like that really white, fuzzy, bright color. And yeah, the dark one just doesn't quite do it for me. I feel like because the fuzz isn't as prominent. I could be remembering wrong though. But anyway, all that to say, sinningia leucotricha is one of the plants that I recommend to like anyone who wants a nice textural plant. I don't even find it that hard to like take care of. It's just, in my experience, once you let them dry out completely too many times, they don't really fully recover. Like the leaves don't quite take in that moisture like they would when they were super healthy, which is why I kind of want to chop this off, because even after like watering it, it'll plump back up, but it'll plump up only this much. And you can see in the back how much it's like sort of curled, and it won't uncurl now. So yeah, if you have a sinningia leucotricha, I recommend, if you're comfortable with no drainage, do no drainage and pot it in something a little bit bigger. Don't try and match the root system to the vessel. As long as you're putting it in a place where it's getting 8 to 10 hours of light, like good light, maybe at least 200, or not 200, maybe at least like 120 to 150 foot candles. Yeah, you can do a larger vessel just so that it can hold more water. It has like a reserve that it can pull from, just because when this gets super dry, it just has a hard time bouncing back. So anyway, that's the first one. Also, you guys might notice that I'm having a hard time speaking. I filmed the week of this week. I also filmed 2 other videos yesterday, so my voice is just kind of at its last, on its last leg. I'm just pulling them as I see them. I'm not doing this really in any particular order. Oh my gosh, a new leaf is coming in. It looks big. That's what she said. I didn't even notice that my veitchii is pushing out a new leaf. Anyway, I'm not showing you guys this in any particular order. I'm just pulling them as I see them. So anyway, obviously I can't focus now because I know a new veitchii leaf is coming. You guys, it looks really large. I don't want to touch it too much, but I think that the leaf goes all the way down, like down here, which is like very, very big. Obviously, I haven't ever seen an emergent leaf on this before because this was the first leaf that like grew in my care, but it was already like this, it was like this big, it was really fresh. So I'm super excited. I feel like I'm on a new journey in veitchii plant parenthood. Anyway, I had to include this plant in this video just because historically, I didn't really like the veitchii. I thought that it looked kind of strange. I thought it looked really weird and kind of creepy, but not in a great way that like I resonate with. It just sort of gave me goosebumps. Like, you know, when like you look at something, like if you're trypophobic, if you look at like holes, you just get like goosebumps all over your body. I kind of got that same feeling with this plant, but I don't know, something clicked in me one day and I was like, I actually really like this plant. And I don't know what it is. My spidey sense is saying that it is the influence from Alice that she has on me that has pushed me in this direction. But I'm glad she has, because not only do I really enjoy the look of this plant now, but the texture, you guys. I thought, if you've never seen a veitchii in person, never held one in person, I thought that the front was going to be where the party was at in terms of texture. Feeling this right here, the ribbing and sort of the like, it's got this sort of almost stickiness to it. I don't know how to explain it. It's not exactly like a pastazanum leaf or like an esmeraldense leaf where it's got like that matte but smooth texture. This one has almost a little bit more grip, like rubber. So not only does it feel like that, plus like the ribbing, you know, it just feels so nice. I give it like a 7 out of 10. What I was the most surprised about was the texture of the back. That is where the party is at. It's like all of these like ridges that they're so sharp and pointy and so pronounced, and it feels unlike anything I have ever felt on a plant before, and it's so wonderful. The first time I ever saw one of these in person was at I think it was at the show where I bought this from, and I remember feeling the back and was just really taken back by how nice it felt. Like it's just got those like sharp, sort of sharp edges. You can hear it. Like it's really rigid. And I can't even imagine like what that must feel like on a really mature specimen. Those ones super get me. Again, weird. I used to be really freaked out by it. I just thought it was kind of phallic looking and just strange. But now I have like an appreciation for the veitchii that I didn't have before. And also an emergent leaf on the veitchii. An emergent leaf on the veitchii is just as magical. Like when the ribs are so tight because it hasn't fully expanded yet, it's so cute. So yeah, I would highly recommend this plant if you're looking for a nice textural anthurium. And it's been, honestly, it's been not bad for me. Like I haven't lost any leaves since the import. And I got this, was it 2 months ago now? And it's the first time really that I have acclimatized in soil, but there is some tree fern fiber mixed into here. But it's just been, honestly, kind of a dream. The humidity in the exo that it's in right now is probably sitting closer to like 55. So not super humid, but definitely a little bit more humid than out here. I do eventually plan on transitioning it out, maybe towards the end of summer. I don't want to put it out here in peak heat because I don't think that it's going to enjoy it. But I will say that in general, I've been really pleased at how easygoing it's been, considering I assumed just by looking at this plant that it would be a really hard plant to acclimatize, a really hard plant to grow. So yeah, pleasantly surprised about that, but definitely made my list of favorite textural plants in my collection. I'm gonna jump straight into one hoya. I have another hoya to show you, but I had to show you my hoya undulata. I knew from the moment I saw this plant that I was gonna love it, but I didn't actually know the extent of how far that love would go, because as it has begun to grow, I just appreciate it more and more with each new leaf. I feel like it's just, okay, so here, let me start from the beginning. When I got this plant, these were the leaves on it. Without the sulfur dust, I did treat it with sulfur like twice for mealies, but it just looked really sort of dead-ish looking. It was yellowing, it was really almost sun-stressed, where it had like this reddish orange look, but not in a great way. It had all of these little, what kind of looks like fungal spots. You can see a bit on here too, but even then I feel like I was able to look past it. I just loved it for the dumpsteriness, and I loved it really for the edges here. Like I'm gonna be quiet and I'm gonna let you hear it. It's got these like razor sharp edges, almost like I'm thinking of a kitchen tool that has like a saw-like blade. But anyway, it's really sharp, really textured, and I just thought it was beautiful. So, you know, when I started getting new leaves, like this guy, I think this was the first leaf I grew in my care, not that big, but then I've started getting really large ones like this. And for them to come in so dark, but have these just very random patches of splotchiness, I was like, I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold. So despite the crusty edges, the leaf itself feels very almost satiny, like a really soft satin. I don't know if you can tell, but there is venation that comes through on the leaf, but it's not protruded so much to where you can so obviously see it, but you can really feel it, and it's really nice. Some of the leaves are stiffer than others. Like you can see this one is pretty thick, whereas this one is more like easily bendable. It is a newer leaf, as is this one here. I really don't want to break off any of these leaves. That would be so sad. The way the leaves feel, it's just so nice. And like if you look at the sheen and the texture of this plant, you'd almost think it's like velvety, but it's not. I mean, it could almost, no, it's not velvety. I lied, it's not velvety at all. It is really more like a super soft satin, like right out of like getting out of like a tumble dry you know, cycle. It's just, it feels so nice. I'm really not the best at describing textures of plants. I feel like that's more of Alice's department, but just imagine a leaf made of satin that had crunchy, crusty, sharp, jagged edges. Does that not sound appealing to you? Because that's like the dream Hoya for me. Aside from the texture though, once this one got established, it took off. It has grown way faster than I feel like I can almost keep up with in the Hoya cabinet. It's like taking basically half of the Hoya cabinet. It has a new leaf coming over here, and I feel like I saw one sort of waking up down at the base, but I could be thinking of another plant. Anyway, if you're looking for a recommendation on an ancient, crusty, dusty dumpster Hoya, I think this would be my #1 recommendation, just because it has so many textural features that I love, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it. I would be interested to know though, as it matures and as like this stem gets a little bit thicker, because it's really thick down at the bottom. You can see it's like a trunk basically, whereas these are a little bit thinner. I do think they will start to stiffen up a little bit more, but I have to say that I quite enjoy these leaves a little bit more than the ones down here. I like that it just feels a little bit softer to the touch, whereas this one's a little bit more like, it's like rhino skin. But yeah, love the undulata. I know you guys kind of just saw this plant in my rhipsalis collection, but I wanted to include it, and I think some of you might be confused as to why this would make the list of textural plants. I feel like when people associate plants to like a very good ASMR texture, I feel like the first thing that comes up are like velvety philodendrons and velvety anthurium. But I want to kind of move away from that kind of romanticizing of like the velvet leaf philodendrons. Like obviously they're super magical. I'm going to show you some, or I'm going to show you one today, but there's so much texture to be enjoyed with plants like this. I don't know if you're the type of plant parent that likes to touch your plants a lot, but I certainly am that kind of plant parent. And to the touch, this does not do anything for me. It's really not doing much. But as a whole, when you just feel it like this, it's unlike anything else. I wish that I could open like a stand, you know, like a lemonade stand, except it's just to touch this plant, and you got to give me like a quarter for every stroke or something so that I can pay my bills. I don't know, I think you'll be surprised at how much you like this plant. It's just so nice. Not only does it have like a good weight once you get like a nice full plant established, but just the texture of all these little thingamabobs in your hand, it just feels really nice. It kind of gives me the same sort of, not endorphins, but like serotonin boost that I get from like stroking like a velvet leaf anthurium, like a really big roqueanum, or a pallidiflorum, or even a hello? Am I okay? Vitarifolium. Whoa, that just, my acorn went completely hollow then. Anyway, yeah, this one for sure has to be one of my most favorite textural plants. I honestly really, any sort of trailing rhipsalis that doesn't have any like spikies, of course, I would easily include that in favorite textural plants. It was hard to not include my Paradoxa minor and my Paradoxa in this video, but I just showed them in my rhipsalis video, so I just wanted to choose one, and I feel like this sort of captures the essence of what I mean when I like to tell people that like rhipsalis, this is like the second time this plant has tried to go in my mouth. Yeah, this is like the epitome of what I try and explain to people when I say that a rhipsalis can be a very, very great textural plant. And again, oh, I don't think I said the idea of it. This is my rhipsalis capilliformis, what I think is a capilliformis. I think it's commonly ID'd as the bassifera, which is why I called it the bassifera for a long time. But per my research, I believe that the bassifera has the thicker leaves, and has like little almost like freckles on them. But yeah, if you can get your hands on a capilliformis, just give it a couple years. Honestly, if you can't find a big one, I feel like it's kind of hard to find like a large basket like this, especially if you live somewhere like where I am. But yeah, this thing, I've had it for 3 years. Wait, yeah, 3 years now, maybe even 4, getting close to 4 years. And it's honestly, it's taken off a lot. I've separated a lot of it for friends. I've chopped it back to like make it more bushy. So just be patient, get yourself that little pot if you can find one, and just nurture it because it will reward you. And it's really honestly one of my easiest plants. The only issue I've ever had with this plant is the amount of water that it uses. It's one of my thirstier plants in my collection, but I've since then, you know, moved it to no drainage. These roots are looking freaking Gorgina George. I just want to eat them. They look so good. And yeah, it's been easier to take care of this plant now ever since moving it out of a pot with drainage, because I give it a thorough water. I let a little tiny bit sit at the bottom, and it's happier for way longer. I used to have to water this thing twice a week, and now, you know, right now, kind of going into summer, it's being watered just as much as my other plants. So I am relieved about that. But anyway, Rhipsalis capilliformis, go get yourself one. I promise you won't regret it. Here is one that I have not shown like really at all on my channel in the last few months, just because it hasn't really done anything. So this is my philodendron squamiferum. It was much larger when I received, wait, no. Shh. It wasn't that much larger. I'm thinking of my serpens, which is now, rest in peace, back with its creator. But yeah, this squamiferum, very similar to the serpent. I do enjoy the serpents a little bit more than the squam, but I have appreciated how much, I would say, easier this one has been for me. So anyway, I do think that it has a great leaf texture. It's not really much different than the other philodendrons that we know and love, but obviously I had to include it for the petiole. I feel like the serpens and the squamiferum have probably one of the most incredible petiole textures that I've ever come across. The first hairy petiole I have ever owned was the philodendron squamiferum. And then it's interesting how there's like this philodendron fuzzy petiole, but it's really not that fuzzy. It feels kind of like a Florida Beauty petiole. Anyway, so the squamiferum, it was great at the time, but once I owned one of these, I didn't really enjoy the petioles like the Genevivianum. What else has a fuzzy petiole? Can't really think of it, but yeah, I much prefer the ones that have actual fuzz and not more so like plastic, kind of feels like a plastic bristle more than a fuzz or a fur. This one is just really fun, and as it matures, like it gets so much thicker. The furs become a lot thicker and more pronounced. My serpens was a good example of that, and I really wish that the plant was still here today to include in this video, but you know, things happen. But yeah, I really more so love this plant for the petiole rather than the leaf itself. I mean, I do enjoy this leaf. I think it's beautiful. I think it has like such a beautiful sinus and beautiful lobes, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that the leaf like blows me away and like it's something that I would want to own multiple of. I've kept it for this long because I really enjoy the texture of it, and I'm just hoping that, you know, one day it can kind of glow up to a size larger than this. I feel like this one does absolutely nothing. It doesn't really root that much. The stem hasn't woken up, and kind of just like sits still in time. But I wanted to include it anyway because it's really the only plant I have right now in my collection that has a fuzzy petiole like this. So anywho, squamiferum, great plant. Jumping back into another Hoya, the last Hoya on this list. So this is a Hoya clemensiorum. If you have not seen one of these plants in person, I think most people would look at this leaf and think it was just kind of like a matte texture or like a demi-matte texture, but it's actually fuzzy. It has like this micro fuzz, like a peach fuzz almost, that's not really obvious. It's It's really subtle, but that's what makes it really nice. So I will say that the fuzz, I feel like the fuzz is a little bit more prominent on the front of it rather than on the abaxial. The back is fuzzy too, but like not quite as fuzzy as the front of it. So besides that texture, it also has that really nice leaf margin that I like about the undulata, where it's like really scratchy and crunchy and jagged. It's so beautiful. It just really like adds to that dumpstery effect, you know? And then with this venation, much more pronounced than the undulata, and not only physically, but also like not only visually, but also physically, like to the touch, you can really feel them. They literally feel like, you know, when you've got like a vein popping out of your forehead or like veins in your hands, it feels just like that. And it feels so nice. So like that combined like fuzzy texture of the plant with like the sharp edges and like the very, very subtle venation that like protrudes from it, it's unmatched, honestly. So there are different forms of clemensiorum. I think there's like 2 that I know of for sure. So like there's the, why do I bring up information that I don't even know? Clemensiorum Thailand. So there's like the Hoya clemensiorum, then there's Hoya clemensiorum Thailand. I've even seen like Hoya clemensiorum longleaf and shortleaf. I don't know if that's like actual, you know, plants, or if it's just like not a mutation, but an offset of a plant that just generally has shorter leaves. What was I saying? Oh my gosh, see, this is why I just get so distracted. Okay, everyone look at my clemensiorum. It looks really, really pretty. Oh, and there's a new leaf. I feel like I'm like so ADHD right now. Squirrel. New leaf incoming. Oh, I was talking about the different forms. So yeah, anywho, enough about that. But look at this new leaf. This is the first, wait, is this the first? This could be the first leaf in my care. I think Vincent is about to, a wild Vincent is about to emerge. Oh, it's just you? Come here. Come say hi to your friends. You want to tell them about this new leaf that we grew? Oh, no, you just want a belly rub? Okay. Look how cute it is. I don't know if I've ever grown a clemensiorum leaf before, like when I owned one, because I owned 2 before the Hoya apocalypse. I actually don't know if I've ever had a new leaf on any of them, but that looks freaking adorable, and I want to take a photo of it now. Do you guys know what this is called? Okay, shh. Do you guys know what this is called on these Hoya leaves? It leaves like this, kind of looks like hot glue gun. You know, like when you have hot glue gun and you pull it and it leaves like that string. Hoyas have that, like right there. I'll circle it. Okay, you guys know what I mean, right? Right there. It's like all over my Hoyas. It kind of like bothers me. I don't like the way it looks. It feels like really like crystal-y, and it just kind of dissolves into nothing like sugars. Anyway, it's on an arka trellis, by the way. Look at how pretty this is with the like holographic colors. Freaking love it. It's so beautiful. It's not really picking up like the pinks and the purples. It's more so showing you guys the blues. Oh, you can kind of see the pinks up there. It's gorgeous. I love this. I think this is my favorite arka trellis for sure in terms of the colors. Hoya clemensiorum, again, I'm not gonna go into it any further. I think if I had to make a comparison between the clemensiorum and the undulata, I would kind of sort of lump them together. It's just this one is, in my opinion, a little bit more dumpstery and ancient looking. But I think I do love them equally. I don't think I have a favorite. I don't think so. Well, I'm saying that now. Maybe once this gets more leaves on it, I'll like fully just be a complete clemensiorum stan. But as it is, love them equally. I think they're both great textural Hoyas. And honestly, if you're a Hoya lover, 2 Hoyas that you have to have in your collection. Good old scalprum made the list, and I think for obvious reasons. I feel like this alocasia is so different than... Okay, bye. See ya. I feel like this alocasia is so different than really any other alocasia out there. It kind of sort of has the same feeling to the touch as like a bisma, but not really. There are just so many textural things I love about this plant. Let's first talk about the sheen of it. It has like a demi-matte, I would say a demi-matte texture to it. The way it feels, I don't know if you can hear it. It's like I'm not gonna say plastic, but it's like pleather. Am I getting that right? It feels like, kind of feels like my couch. Yeah, like pleather. But this feels better obviously because of the actual texture of the plant and like all of that venation that goes through it. It looks unreal. It looks like, I don't know, it's so reptilian and just so like, there's no words. I have no words for it, but it's just one of those plants that I truly cannot see myself not having at all times. Like if anything ever happened to this plant, it would be one that like I replace immediately. There's no way that I can live without this scalprum. And honestly, if I could only choose one alocasia to have in my collection, and you know, obviously you guys know I love my Frydek. I think that the scalprum is a little bit more my speed. The Frydek does, I feel like it's a more exciting plant in that every leaf will kind of surprise you, but I just feel like the dark, sort of sinister look of this plant is just something that like jives with me more. If you've never felt a scalprum in person, it literally feels exactly how it looks. Even the abaxials are really nice. I'm gonna try and show you without slapping myself. But it also has a really nice texture. These veins in the back are very pronounced as well. And then the thickness of the leaf is another thing that I really love about it. It's not paper thin like a Frydek. It's not paper thin like, what's another alocasia that's really thin? Anyway, it's kind of like as thick as, maybe not as thick as a Mellow or a Maharani, maybe a little bit thinner than that, but still has like a nice rigidness to it. And it just looks like a shield. Looks like an evil, sinister shield, and I love it. And besides this getting like spider mites every now and then, it has spider mites right now actually, but if you look at it from, I would say afar, even up close you can't really tell, it looks really happy. And this is not a plant that is super dramatic when it comes to pests. Like it's had spider mites over and over and over again, and I really don't notice it until I look up close because it's just been really like strong and resilient throughout all of it. So if you are looking for an alocasia to add to your collection that I feel is like really easygoing, the scalprum would probably be my #1 recommendation in terms of the way it looks, the way it feels, of course, and like ease of care, if that makes sense. Second to last one is my pallidiflorum. So this is, I have two, if you guys, I mean, some of you probably know that already. This is one of my newer ones. I got this from the recent Tropicals pop-up show at North Shore Tropicals. And the reason I got this one is because it's probably one of my favorite textural plants and even like visual plants in terms of anthurium. I just didn't know how like thin and narrow it would be. So that was a really nice surprise. I'm not the best at growing them, but I do like really, I keep them in my collection because I just love the texture of them. So I think one of the greatest things about these, you know, these pendant leaf anthurium is really just for the feeling of them. They look really cool, obviously, especially once they're nice and big. The way they feel is truly, I'm not gonna say unlike anything else because it is kind of like a lot of other plants, but the feeling of having especially a really new leaf that's not hardened yet, when you stroke it, I don't like the way that sounds. When you stroke it, it sort of like just sort of molds and flops in your hand, and it just kind of like hugs your hand, and it's just a beautiful, magical experience. And not only are, I would say, the color of the emergent leaves just so wonderful, just yeah, the way they feel is everything. I think that I love this plant equally for the visual look of it and like the feeling of it as well. So the pallidiflorum, I've been asked before, like, what is the difference between a pallidiflorum and a, why do I keep forgetting the name of this? Vitarifolium. Hello, what's going on up there? I've asked, you know, people have asked me what's the difference between them, and I honestly think that like I don't really see how it's mistaken because the texture of them are so different. Like you can see this one is really, really velvety. It's got like that glittery, shiny look, especially in the right light. Whereas the Veitchii is super, super matte. It's really dark. It doesn't have this fuzzy texture at all, as well as this really pronounced midrib. That's also something that I really enjoy about this plant, is this midrib, the feeling of it. The spine, it's so rigid, it's so pronounced, and it like protrudes from the plant so much. And yeah, just again, the way it feels, very like a thicker leaf. I feel like it's probably the same thickness as the Veitchii, maybe slightly thicker, but not that much. I feel like if you look at photos of a lot of pallidiflorums, you would think that they're so much thicker than the Veitchii, like they'd almost be as thick as like Oberoquianum or like Oberoquianum, but I would say it's a little bit on the thinner side. Granted, I've seen Lauren's really, really big pallidiflorum, and although the leaf it's very, very heavy, all of the textures are just like, you know, pronounced 100 times more than a smaller one. But I will say that it's still more on like the thinner side. So anyway, yeah, this is, I would say, probably one of the most ASMR textural anthurium out there. I would say even maybe the most appealing textural anthurium, because this is one that sort of captured me from the very beginning. Before I owned it, I saw people doing videos with them and like just showing how sort of like they move in the wind, and like how it just kind of falls on your hand when they're really soft, or even when they're really large and heavy, when it has more weight to it and more length to it, it does that same thing where you can kind of like let it hug your hand as you give it a stroke. Can we think of something else to say besides that? So yeah, even before owning it, I was like, man, that must be such an amazing feeling to just like touch that plant. And when I finally had it in person, it met every expectation, if not more. And I feel like that's kind of a rarity with plants. Sometimes online it looks so much more appealing. People are showing the best of their plants. And yeah, that's not always reality sometimes. And I think a big but I think a good example of that for me was when I received my patriciae. You know, when you think of a patriciae, that's also another plant that I would have loved to include in this video, but I didn't. But I have seen really large, mature patriciaes before, and it does have a really nice texture to it. It has a really nice feel in the hand to it, but the young plants, like even like this large, does not do it for me at all. So I do think that it's a maturity thing, but the reason that I would say that this would be number one in terms of textural anthurium for me is because even when it's small, like even this little guy here, it feels so nice to touch. Like I don't feel like this one needs to have like the maturity of a patriciae to really, really enjoy it. I feel like it's a really rewarding and satisfying plant to grow even when it is much smaller. So of course, had to include this guy. And I'm happy to report that it's still alive and kicking. This is another one that I received from Lauren at the North Shore Tropicals show, at the Tropicals Plants show. Again, rooted it in soil and tree fern fiber, and honestly, I think that this might be my go-to now for acclimatizing. I'm not doing moss anymore. I'm not doing perlite, really. I think that I'll probably do all tree fern fiber or a soil tree fern fiber mix. I think the only time I would really consider only doing perlite is if I know 100% that I'm gonna transition it to pon. Just because I find that transition to be a lot easier. But honestly, I've done tree fern fiber to pon transfers multiple times, and they, you know, took off without a hitch. So honestly, it's really not like rocket science. I think as long as you understand your conditions, you're working with a healthy root system, it should be a fairly straightforward transition. Sorry, I thought that was gonna be the second to last one. I actually have two more to show you. So this is the second to last one. I had to show you my tortum. I feel like I take every opportunity to shove a tortum in your face if I can do it, because I feel like some people have accused me of pushing an agenda on this channel, and I'm gonna say that's not true. I don't really benefit from pushing any kind of agenda. on this channel. I just kind of follow my heart. But if you ask me if there is a certain agenda that I am pushing, it's gonna be the tortum agenda. I want people to own tortums. I want people to understand how much the tortum will change their life in this hobby. It brings a certain amount of joy that I can't quite put into words. Not only because of how beautiful this leaf is, beautiful, magical, wonderful, every word you can think of, but an unsuspecting thing about this plant is how good it is for the texture. So when I saw it in photos, I really thought that the leaves were gonna be a little bit softer. I thought they were gonna be super soft. I thought they would be easily sort of like bendable, kind of like a majesty palm, right? Not taking into account like that thick stem or this thick petiole, but like the leaves, like they're really soft, they're really floppy, they just kind of flop in the wind, fly in the wind. I kind of thought it would be the same when I only saw photos, but I was just pleasantly surprised at how really thick and rigid these leaves are. So for one, it's got this spine, it's almost like a triangle shape, and it's really, really thick. Like it's hard, it's kind of hard to bend, and it's like hard to bend back. So it's super stiff that way. And even the leaves themselves, they're not like a majesty palm where they're just kind of like, they're like paper thin. These ones are slightly thicker, and they just hold its shape and it holds its form a lot more than the majesty palm. And just with all of that combined and like the crazy growth pattern, the sort of sinister look of these leaves, it just all kind of comes together. And when you touch the leaf like this, or you just, you know, you just kind of feel it, and or just like the whole plant on its own, it's just so nice. I feel like such a freak right now. This is why you guys suggested this, because you wanted to put me, you knew what you're doing. But I'll do it, it's fine, because I'm not kidding when I tell you that this plant is just it's so great. If you're new to this channel, this is my favorite plant. If I could only choose one plant to keep in my collection forever and ever and ever, amen, it's gonna be the tortum. Looks cool, feels cool, sounds cool. It's got it all. She's the it girl. Wait, I can't count. 1, 2, 3. I have 2 more plants to show you. That was not the second to last. This next one, I swear, is second to last. I'm not joking. Say hello to my gloriosum. Let's get this out of the way first. If you're wondering why is it wet? If you're wondering what this is, and this is, this thing, like the leaves move so quickly when you move around light, and in my plant room, it just it got burned by my Mother Life Grow Light. It gets pretty hot, so be careful if you are thinking of getting that plant, or if you're thinking of getting that, that light. I'm gonna try and just keep it right here because it's just a little much. Come on, act like you like each other, everyone. Get in the photo. I feel like my mom. Anyway, this is the newest leaf on my gloriosum. It's not this specific gloriosum that I like the texture of. It's really just any gloriosum, but this is the one that looks the most decent in my collection right now, so I wanted to show it to you. Going back to what I was saying about how everyone always sort of romanticizes the velvet leaf philodendron. Well, I do too. I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh, you guys are like giving into the hype. No, I mean, it's hyped for a reason, and it feels magical. I mean, there's a reason why I slap Alice with these big leaves, because it's enjoyable for me and it's enjoyable for her. It's just an enjoyable experience all around, and we love it. We love to see it. So I don't feel like I really need to get into it that much. I feel like most people kind of know how these gloriosums feel. Someone has asked me before if they're fuzzy, and I think the reason why it gets confused is because we refer to them as velvet leaf anthurium. What? We refer to them as velvet leaf philodendrons, but I don't really even think velvet is the right word, because if you are thinking of actual velvet, velvet is fuzzy. Velvet has like literal little hairs, right? Whereas like these velvet leaf anthurium, these velvet leaf philodendrons, they don't actually have any furs or hairs. It's not fuzzy at all. I think we need I feel like we need a new word to describe them because it's not fuzzy. So, and when this person asked, they're like, oh, sorry if it's a stupid question. I don't think it's a stupid question at all, because if I had heard the term velvet leaf philodendron or velvet leaf anthurium before I actually owned it, and that wasn't the case for me, when I received it, I would be like, where's the fuzz? Where's the velvet? Like, this doesn't feel like velvet at all. Like, I own something velvet in my closet. Don't ask me what it is. Okay, I own one article of clothing that's velvet, and it feels nothing like velvet. It is really more of sort of this like matte, smooth texture that feels like, come on guys, help me out here. Feels like something good. Feels like something good for your fingers. Feels great on your fingers. That's what she said. Had to include this one because I think it would not be a real textural plant video if I didn't include some sort of pillowy philodendron. It's just, yeah, this one's magical. And honestly, this form has been the most difficult for me to grow historically, but I truly think the addition of the mycorrhizal inoculants has helped so much, because when I owned this plant the first and the second and the third time, I wasn't using any myco at the time. The only difference now is that I am using myco, and it was given to me with already having sort of like a good ecosystem down in the pot, which I can show you now. So this is one of my favorite setups to do if I am using a pot with drainage. And that's doing something like this, like a plastic pot with a pot underneath. And I don't know if you can see it, but it grows these like nice fuzzy roots out of the pot. And the reason I like this is because traditionally on a pot that has drainage holes, if you're just using like a cover pot or you're just using a drip tray, sometimes those roots that escape out of the cover pot will dry up if you're not super regular with watering. And because it's in a cover pot, you can't see what's actually going on in there. Whereas with this one, even though it's coming out, it's not actually touching the bottom, so it's not getting like all squished and stuff, and I can still see what's going on. So for me, this is like my ideal sort of self-watering situation. Or if I had to use something with drainage holes, I would want to do it in a setup like this. I just wish the fit was a little better. You can see there's kind of muffin topping, but they do have pots like this, like on Amazon and Temu and stuff, that are designed like this, but they're not ever really in this size. They always come in like a 6-inch max. I've never seen one really larger than a 6-inch pot, and I would need them like 8 inches and larger. Last but not least, we have another pillowy philodendron here, and this is my philodendron Dean McDowell, who loves throwing and hosting parties for spider mites. When I tell you I have never seen a spider mite case so bad, it was with this plant. Like, honestly, I don't know why it invites them and attracts them so much, but you can tell, or maybe not. I just took it out of the shower. This is the second shower I've given it this week alone, and it's Wednesday. I've used Azamax, I've used my Dr. Doom, I've used Captain Jack's. I feel like I've used every sort of chemical spray that I have in this house, and it doesn't care. It just keeps on giving the spider mites what it wants, and I don't really know what else to do with it at this point, which is why it's been isolated for months and months and months. You can kind of see how bad this new leaf was attacked. So anywho, we're talking about texture. So this is probably one of the first things that I noticed about this plant when it was like first introduced to me. So the story with the Dean McDowell, when I first saw it, this was like in 2000, I think it would have been like the beginning of 2020, or was it the end of 2019? I can't quite remember. But my friend saw this at a plant store locally. She sent me a photo and was like, do you want me to grab this for you? And I was immediately attracted to like the shape of it, but for me it was like the texture that I was like, I have to have it. The texture of this plant is similar to a gloriosum, just not as sort of, again, not velvety, but velvety to the touch. It has a little bit of a smoother feel, but not quite as smooth as like the pastazanum. The Passazenum has like a really sort of like slick, flat, what am I saying, texture, whereas this one's a little bit, it has a little bit more like fluffiness to it. And even just the way it looks, you know, because these, because the venation goes all the way to the end, to the edge of the leaf blade. I think that's what makes it look even more puffy, because it's a very thin leaf plant. It's not actually puffy, but just the way it looks would make you think that it's a lot more like thick and like juicy in person, and it's not, which is not, you know, I'm not saying that that's a plus. I would freaking love if this thing had a little bit more like meat to it, but it still has like such a great texture. And up until the point that I owned this plant, I had never really owned anything in my collection that quite felt like it, and it's just so nice to the touch. Just feels nice and pillowy. It really is truly like, I would say like the token philodendron. If I had to choose one philodendron to be like the representative of all of the beautiful philodendrons out there, I think the Dean McDowell takes the cake for sure. So I'm gonna put this down because I realize I'm like heavily loving on this plant, and there's probably still spider mites all over it, so now I'm itchy. But anyway, that's all. Okay, bye. Outros are always so like awkward for me. I'm just like, how do I send you guys off? Anyway, that truly is all of the plants that I pulled in my collection. I mean, there are still a few that I could pull, but probably not enough for like a part 2 of this. But I do think I eventually want to do a video where I assume what the texture is gonna be like for each plant that like I don't have yet, but that I really visually feel like have like an amazing texture. I'm just gonna need a little bit of time to like kind of put that video together and make sure that I'm really scouring far and wide to bring you guys a good list. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any of these same plants and you agree with me on the texture of them, I'd love to know. And I'd also love to know what your favorite textural plants are. Maybe putting plants that I don't know of on my radar, or I don't know, influence me to get a plant. Let's do reverse influencing here. So anyway, I'm gonna go. Thank you as always for being here. Thank you for supporting this little channel. I appreciate you guys so much. If you liked it, please don't forget to give it a if you like it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up because it helps us a lot on YouTube, and I will see you in the next one.